Welcome back to the Gentrics Multiverse podcast.
Glad to be back.
So last time we sat down, we spent a lot of time unpacking this really massive world-building question. Like, is the continent of Picodesh this fully realized, breathing world, or is it just, convenient narrative scenery designed to serve a tragedy?
Right, the whole stage versus story debate.
Exactly. And we landed in a really interesting place, I think. We found genuine strengths in the architecture of the setting. I mean, Aeon Pax's brutal, systemic harvesting pipeline that just swallowed up the protagonist's younger brothers, Milo and Florent.
Yeah, that was heavy. We really felt the weight of that permanence. Crater Steve tearing through the Sukar estate and just, taking them.
Right. But we also acknowledged some genuine gaps, where the world felt a little thin when the main characters weren't directly on screen. But today, we're shifting our focus from the stage to the tragedies themselves.
Which is where Gentrics really traps the reader, honestly.
Oh, absolutely. So here is the central question we are tackling today. What is the single best twist in Book 1? And if you've been following along, our usual format is to take a single claim and argue opposite sides of it. We are mixing that up today.
We are.
We are each championing a completely different twist and putting them head to head to figure out which moment represents the absolute narrative peak of the novel. So I will be representing the sheer, visceral horror of the Kenshin-is-Malamar reveal.
And I will be championing the structural genius of the Congo War time loop reveal.
I mean, we're really going for the heavy hitters here.
I've been looking forward to this because, frankly, Book 1 does not hold back. It conditions you to expect standard fantasy tropes only to just completely pull the rug out from under you.
It really does. So let's get right into it. I am arguing that the Kenshin-is-Malamar reveal is the ultimate twist, mainly because of how completely and devastatingly it recontextualizes every single mentor scene that precedes it.
Every single one. Yeah.
Right? Like it takes a trope we all intuitively trust, the gruff, eccentric, but, deeply loving master, and it turns our own hindsight into absolute horror. I mean, we spend chapters believing Kenshin is just some rogue swordsman wandering the markets of Sukar, taking pity on an orphaned boy.
Just a classic underdog setup.
Exactly. But the reveal shatters that. Kenshin was never real. He was Mala, a deep-cover agent orchestrating a 20-year psychological operation ordered directly by Iolite.
20 years, an entire lifetime of absolute dedication to a complete fabrication. It's almost hard to fathom.
It is. And that is precisely why it hit so hard. It was a 20-year grooming process to prepare a lamb for slaughter. When you reread the book and look back at Kenshin telling Xeonix that his grandfather, Xeon was a quote-unquote crystal loan shark, I mean, your stomach drops.
Because you realize what he's actually doing.
Right. On a first read, we assume that's just a hard, gritty truth meant to toughen the boy up, keep him grounded. But in hindsight, it was a highly calculated lie designed to sever Xeonix from his true noble legacy. Malamar wanted to ensure that if Xeonix ever encountered a loyalist, he would inherently distrust them.
It's just so malicious.
Even the wholesome birthday party, remember that? The one the town of Sukar threw for him?
Oh, man.
The one moment where Xeonix finally felt like he belonged somewhere, that was entirely orchestrated by Malamar. It was calculated torture designed to build a foundation of trust purely so it could be weaponized later. That profound, intimate betrayal is the peak of the book for me.
Well, I can already tell you're going to push back incredibly hard on my choice, given how much emotional weight you're placing on the human element here. But I have to firmly plant my flag on the Congo War time loop reveal.
I mean, I don't hate it, but
I say it's the superior twist precisely because it is the structural catalyst that literally causes every other twist in the book to happen.
wait, you're saying it causes Malamar's betrayal too?
I am saying it is the direct mechanical cause of it, yes. Malamar's entire 20-year scheme in Sukar is entirely dependent on that specific time loop anomaly.
Okay. I see where you're going with this.
Right. Because if you pull the thread of Zeryl folding the void so that Xeonix can step backward and meet his grandfather on the battlefield of the Congo War, the entire plot of Book 1 completely unravels. The time loop isn't just a shocking visual or, a cool mechanism. It is the load-bearing pillar of the entire narrative architecture. Without it, the house collapses.
Okay, I certainly see the causal link you're drawing there. But let's think about how these twists actually function for the reader in the moment of discovery.
Fair enough.
While the time loop is a neat, incredibly intricate mechanical trick, the Malamar twist is deeply, devastatingly human. I just have to ask you, does a structural domino effect really hit the reader harder than realizing the man who fed you, housed you, and protected you was actively teaching you your elemental arts incorrectly on purpose?
The betrayal is profound, yes. And I won't deny that realization is sickening.
Sickening almost feels like an understatement. It's systemic sabotage masked as paternal love. Let's talk about the mechanics of the early physical training for a second. Kenshin forces Xeonix to swing that massive, unbalanced meat cleaver for hours on end until his hands literally bleed.
The whole training montage.
Right. At the time, as readers, we just assume it's the classic, wax on, wax off trope. We think he's building necessary muscle. But after the twist, when we actually understand the elemental arts, we realize Malamar was forcing him to use a meat cleaver to build brute kinetic force.
Which is the exact opposite of what he needs.
Exactly. The green wind style, which is Xeonix's natural birthright, requires fluid, aerodynamic momentum and quiet harmonic focus. By forcing him to use a heavy, unbalanced weapon, Malamar was literally building the wrong muscle memory into Xeonix's nervous system. He was intentionally crippling the boy's natural form so he could never reach his true potential.
Yeah, it's brittle.
To me, that level of intimate anatomical violation hits infinitely harder than a timeline paradox.
Okay, that is a highly compelling breakdown of the meat cleaver training. It truly is anatomical sabotage, but I want to challenge your framing here. Have you considered that everything you just described, the meat cleaver, the 20-year lie, the psychological grooming, is quite literally just a symptom of the true masterstroke?
A symptom?
Yes. The 20-year lie is brutal, but absolutely none of it happens without the sheer, terrifying narrative genius of Iolite standing knee-deep in the mud of the Congo War.
Okay, you want to talk about the mud of the Congo War? We can definitely go there, but I actually think it exposes a flaw in your argument.
Oh, we have to go there, because that scene is where the brilliance of the antagonist is truly forged. When Xeon drops into that past timeline, the universe is practically bleeding together. Iolite is fighting his own brother, Xeon Clerics, in the absolute chaos of elemental combat.
It is a very chaotic scene.
Smoke is everywhere, shrapnel is flying, it's absolute sensory overload. And across the battlefield, Iolite locks eyes with Xeonix for just a few seconds. Now, if you're reading a standard run-of-the-mill fantasy, what happens here? The villain receives some mystical prophecy of his own defeat. He looks into a crystal ball, the clouds part, and he sees his doom preordained by the gods.
Which, to give credit where it's due, Gentrics smartly completely avoids.
Entirely avoids. Because Iolite doesn't receive a prophecy, he uses cold, terrifying logic. He observes this young, out-of-place stranger fighting alongside his brother. He recognizes the highly specific green wind style being utilized. He sees the distinct facial resemblance, and right there, amidst the explosions in the span of maybe 3 seconds, he deduces that his brother's bloodline survives into the future.
It's a massive deductive leap, but yes, he makes it.
And that single deduction, which is born entirely from the time loop anomaly, is what sets the 20-year trap in motion. The time loop twist is superior because it perfectly showcases the terrifying, deductive intellect of the antagonist, rather than relying on fate.
Okay, that is a really strong point about how it establishes Iolite's intellect. But if we're going to dig into the mechanics of the Congo War time loop, I actually think it flirts dangerously with breaking the internal logic of the universe itself. Let me offer a different way to look at this.
Sure.
To me, introducing time travel into a gritty setting feels like installing a narrative escape hatch in a submarine.
A narrative escape hatch? How so?
Think about the pressure Picodesh is under. It is a submarine deep underwater. It is an unforgiving reality defined by permanent, brutal losses. We just talked about Milo and Florent being violently ripped from their home by Crater Steve and fed into Aeon Pax's empire.
Right.
That happened, and it was permanent. We know about the unceremonious murder of Xeonix's parents. Death matters here. The stakes are grounded in permanence. But the moment Zeryl folds space and lets someone walk into the past, you open an escape hatch. It suggests that bending the fundamental rules of time is possible. And if you're a reader, you immediately think, well, why mourn anyone if we can just manipulate the void and try again? It risks cheapening the permanent reality of the violence we've spent hundreds of pages establishing.
I understand why our reader might initially have that reaction. I do. But I completely reject the escape hatch label. I think it severely misrepresents the strict, brutal physics of the elemental arts that Gentrics took such care to establish.
But it is time travel.
If you're listening to this and worrying about paradoxes or infinite redos, you have to look at the cost. This isn't a magical revolving door.
But functionally, it is a door to the past. It allows a character to step out of their current timeline.
A door that exacts a massive, almost fatal biological toll. We have to look at the canon rules governing this specific event. First and foremost, only Xeonix travels through time. Nobody else. Ever.
Okay, true.
Aeon Pax cannot mass-produce this to win the war. Iolite cannot use this to retroactively undo his own strategic failures. It is a strictly isolated, highly volatile anomaly.
An anomaly that just happens to perfectly serve the protagonist's need to understand his grandfather.
But look at how it serves him, and look at the physical cost paid to achieve it. Let's abandon the submarine metaphor for a second. Think of Zeryl folding the void like a person trying to manually hold open a watertight door at the absolute bottom of the Mariana Trench.
Okay, that's a vivid image.
Zeryl does not travel through time with Xeonix. Zeryl stays in the present, and he acts as a biological tentpole. He is utilizing his mastery of the elemental arts to create a localized vacuum in space-time. And the moment he does that, the universe doesn't just passively accept it.
No, it pushes back.
Exactly. The immense atmospheric pressure of normal reality violently rushes in to crush that vacuum. Zeryl is standing there in the present, coughing up blood, his lungs literally being compressed by the sheer weight of the universe actively rejecting the paradox.
Right. He is paying the biological tax for an unprecedented elemental output.
Yes, the universe violently fights back. Zeryl nearly dies just holding the fracture open for a few hours, and eventually that atmospheric pressure wins. It violently slams Xeonix back into his own time, permanently sealing the rift. Gentrics uses this to prove that the universe of Picodesh is governed by strict, punishing physics. It is an earned twist paid for in blood and shattered biology, not a free pass to go fix the plot.
Okay, I'll admit, the Mariana Trench visual actually helps clarify the elemental mechanics at play. Zeryl isn't casting a spell. He is becoming a physical wedge against reality. But even if the physics are punishing, even if it nearly kills Zeryl, the resulting timeline manipulation still risks undercutting the permanence of the present day for the reader.
I really don't think it does, because we have to look at the outcome. The time loop doesn't undo a single tragedy. Xeonix's parents are still dead. Crater Steve's raid still happens. Milo and Florent are still gone. Xeonix doesn't save his grandfather, Xeonclerix, in the Congo War. He just fights alongside him for a brief chaotic moment. If anything, the time loop actually creates more trauma than it resolves, precisely because it triggers Iolite's paranoia.
Which brings us right back to the causal chain you mentioned earlier.
It all comes back to the causality.
You know, as much as I want to dig my heels in on the psychological horror of Kenshin, I pride myself on following the logic of the text. And if we trace the forensic timeline of the plot step by step, I am finding it difficult to deny the structural bedrock of the time loop.
The domino effect is mathematically precise.
It really is. Let's trace it out. If Zeryl doesn't make that desperate, near-fatal void fold, well, if the atmospheric pressure of the void doesn't force Xeonix to materialize on that exact square inch of the battlefield in the Orion lands, then the meeting between him and Xeonclerix never happens.
Never happens.
And if they never stand shoulder to shoulder, Iolite never looks across the smoke.
He never deduces the future survival of the Green Wind lineage.
And if he doesn't deduce that, the trap is never set.
Right. Malamar is never ordered to assume the identity of Kenshin. He never wanders into the markets of Sukar, and he never infiltrates Xeonix's life. So when you map it out like that, I really have to concede that the Congo wartime loop is the architectural bedrock of the plot. Without it, the entire second half of Book 1 simply does not exist. The betrayal I'm championing is just downstream of your twist. I really appreciate you mapping that out because it highlights exactly why I think it's the engine that drives the entire tragedy. However, listening to you unpack the mechanics of the Cleaver training earlier really struck a chord with me, and I think I need to look at the limitations of my own position here. Oh, I'm curious where you think the time loop falls short.
Well, while I firmly maintain that the time loop is the structural cause of everything that follows, I have to admit that it functions primarily as a cold, mechanical device. It is a brilliant display of the physics behind the elemental arts, and it perfectly highlights Iolite's intellect, but it lacks intimacy.
It's very clinical.
It is. It doesn't carry the emotional weight of a human relationship. The Malamar twist, on the other hand, delivers the actual psychological payload of the book.
It takes the mechanical setup and turns it into emotional devastation.
Precisely. Zeryl folding the void is awe-inspiring from a world-building perspective, but realizing that Kenshin's warmth, his gruff protection, his mentorship, the very food he put on the table in Sukar, was actually a weapon forged by the enemy, I mean, that is viscerally upsetting. To use a different metaphor, the time loop builds the house, but the Malamar twist locks the doors and burns it down with the protagonist trapped inside.
Wow. That's a grim way to put it, but accurate.
You are absolutely right that the weaponization of trust is the true emotional peak of the text.
It's the realization that the cold, punishing machinery of the universe, the void folds and atmospheric pressures, is ultimately less terrifying than pure human malice.
Exactly. The universe is indifferent, but Malamar was intentional.
I think this exchange has really illuminated something special about how Gentrics constructs a narrative. If we look at where we both landed, I maintain that the Malamar reveal is the most viscerally terrifying moment in Book 1 because it weaponizes our own understanding of narrative tropes. By teaching Xeonix to swing a meat cleaver, Malamar deliberately corrupted the boy's physiological foundation in the elemental arts, proving that the deepest, most permanent wounds aren't made with swords on a battlefield, but with 20 years of weaponized trust.
And I maintain that the Congo War time loop is the absolute pinnacle of world building in Picodesh. It executes a flawless, closed causal loop governed by strict, unforgiving physics. Zeryl, acting as a biological tent pole against the crushing atmospheric pressure, proves this isn't some cheap narrative trick to undo death. It is a brutal, costly manipulation of the void that serves as the mechanical catalyst for every single tragedy that follows.
And perhaps the reason this book resonates so deeply is exactly this. It is the combination of the intricate, reality-bending mechanics of the elemental arts paired perfectly with devastatingly intimate human betrayal. You need the cold logic of the time loop to facilitate the burning intimacy of the 20-year lie. They feed into each other, elevating the material far beyond a standard fantasy novel.
Complexity almost always requires multiple perspectives to fully appreciate. When you put the mechanics and the malice side by side, you see the full picture of what Gentrics accomplished.
You really do. And as always, we aren't here to declare a definitive winner or tell you how to read the book. We leave it entirely up to you, the listener, to weigh the evidence. Whether you are fascinated by the brutal physics of the void or terrified by the psychological depth of a 20-year lie, there is always more to explore in the text.
Join us for our Season 2 retrospective, where we look back at everything we've covered and rank the debates themselves.